If you remember your definitions, this goes by pretty quick. If you don't, then you're throwing away easy points on the SOL. For conditional statement, let's write down, that is our technical way of saying if then. And underneath, let's write symbolically what it looks like. We have a variable, then we have a arrow, and then another variable. What do we do when we do the converse? What's our word? Reverse. Switch. And what we're talking about is position. So if I take the converse of this, then I'd be looking at QP. It's still an if-then statement. All I'm doing is reversing the two parts. What are the two parts called? What's the first part called and what's the second part called? What's our technical terms for those? Okay. No. Hypothesis and this part? Conclusion. Just some technical vocabulary. The reviews that I go over the real basics. Enough to get you that hopefully 400 score on the SOL. Everything else is up to you to go back to your notes, go back to chapter 2, take a look at all of the different notes, take a look at all the different videos that we did on logic and reasoning. Inverse, what do? Nothing moves around, but what happens?
Make it the opposite.
Make it the opposite. And the word that we use is negate. Negate both parts. So if I go back to the inverse of this original statement, I'd be looking at inverse P implies inverse Q. So P and the Q stay in the same place, our hypothesis and conclusion don't move, and we negate them. How about contrapositive?
Switch and negate.
Switch and negate. If we go back to finding the contrapositive of the original, then we'd be looking at negation Q, negation P. What words are associated with biconditional statements? It's not if then. If and only if. And what symbol? What goes in between this time?
A line, or I guess a line symbol. I don't know how to say it.
Yep. Line symbol, both ways, arrows, both directions. If I am looking at an inverse, that means that nothing's moving, but I'm creating opposite situations for both of the hypothesis and conclusion. 4x equals 8. I want the opposites. 4x does not equal 8. X equals 2. I want an opposite or a negation. X is not equal to 2. Did you have choice D? We will eventually be doing a little more work with some Venn diagram problems. Which of these represents the Venn diagram that's pictured? Raise your hand. Do I want F, G, H, or J? What you got?
G.
G, all equilateral triangles are also isosceles. If I'm inside here, and I'm an equilateral triangle, am I also inside of the isosceles rectangle? Yes. You could also think of it, if you have a set inside of another set, think of this as the hypothesis of an if-then statement. Think of this as the conclusion. So I could also say, if triangle is equilateral, then triangle is isosceles. So if it's inside another figure, put that into the beginning part of the if-then statement. They're not showing us if-then statements, but it's in the same order that we would have. That's G. If I set this up to look like this, what would be my result? If I got P leading to Q and Q leading to R, what is my end result? Justin?
Oh, yeah, or P is R.
P implies R, and that would be there. What is the name of that law? What's our technical name?
Transitive?
No.
Is it transitive?
It's transitive if we were dealing with equal signs or congruent signs. But since we're dealing with if-then symbols and conditional symbols, we have a more technical name for it. What law would this be? Starts with an S. Symmetry.
Oh, wow.
Remember syllogism? This is meant to make you start thinking, hey, I need to study. I need to look back at the immense amount of stuff that I learned this year. This is a comprehensive test, and you might have to tell whether something is a law of syllogism, a law of detachment, a law of contrapositive. We went over all that. There are worksheets in your notebook that discuss that. You need to sit down, perhaps for an hour or so, and look over all of your notes and make sure that you know all of your vocabulary. Contrapositive. Well, we said that that means we switch and negate. Let's see, doing homework is here, being prepared for the test is second. So those switch, and we throw in some knots. Testing goes first. Is that B? Not prepared. Not doing homework. That looks correct to me. Are we good? Easy to make mistakes on problems like this. Slow yourself down. Actually read what's in front of you. We've got a converse this time. Nothing gets switched to opposite, but we switch positions. Fishing will go to the end. Needing bait will go to the beginning. Needs bait, goes fishing. Is that the first one? Sure, second. Representation. You want to see problems like this. This is just a translation problem. You got to focus on what's important. What's important is that P is that phrase. Q is that phrase. Symbol for if-then is an arrow. Start with that. Does P or Q mention whole number? Which one talks about a whole number? Q. So I know Q is going to be first. But this one had a not in it, this one does not. I need my negation symbol. Sometimes you're putting in the word not, sometimes you're taking it out. This says x squared is not equal to 21. This says x squared is equal to 21. So it's definitely p, but it's the opposite of p, or the negation of p. That is choice J. Be careful. Next page. More Venn diagrams. If there is a space, something or someone is in it. So I know there's football players out here, there's football players in here, and in there. Otherwise, those spaces wouldn't be presented to you. So do all football players play offense or defense? No, there's some football players out here in this universe. No football players play offense and defense. Well, there's an intersection right here, and if it's presented to me, something is in it, even if it's just one element or one person. So that's not true. All football players play defense. That's not true. There's football players over here. Some play offense and defense. Some can mean one, even if it's only one player in that intersection. Another translation problem. We have an if and only if statement. We have an or statement. Then we have therefore, and we have an and situation. What's the symbol for if and only if? Arrow symbol. What's the symbol for or?
A V.
A V. And the symbol for and? Well, what does an A look like? Looks like that. Do we have any of these that have that order? Let's see. The only ones that have the two arrows are C and D. The only one that has a V next would be D. There's our three symbols right in a row. You'd like to see logic and reasoning show up. There's no calculation work here. You're thinking, just think slowly. Keep that in your review section. What's currently in your review section? Just a midpoint and slope. Now you've got a very simple reasoning and logic. That's not everything. That's the basics. Still need to go back to your notebook at some time and do some studying.